Hey guys, it's Marco again. Today I'm presenting you with an ultimate Frost Mage guide for patch 9.2. This will be a long video, but you have timestamps if you want to visit certain section of the video. I will also have Frost Mage basics in this guide, since they have been requested quite a lot. My request in return is that you guys press that like button and maybe even subscribe if you want to see more of my content. One more note is that this guide will mainly be made for players who got their hands on 2-piece set. Before that point, my 9.1.5 guide should be good enough for optimally playing Frost Mages. Huge shout out to Valorant, he also has a YouTube channel linked in the description. We had a few discussions on this matter and he's been a lot of help. Go and give him some love. Frost Mage basics are quite simple. They're the easiest mage spec to play at 90% of the spec level. That's at least my opinion. Frost is all about generating and using procs. Your main proc generator is Frostbolt, and you're pretty much spamming this ability. Each time you cast a Frostbolt, you have a chance of generating either Fingers of Frost or Brain Freeze proc. Fingers of Frost can stack up to 2, and they make your next Ice Lance do a lot more damage, as if you're hitting a frozen target. On the other hand, Brain Freeze makes your next Flurry cast instant, and it will leave 2 stacks of Ventyr's Chill debuff on the target. Ventyr's Chill makes your next ability that hits the target deal damage as if the target is frozen. One important fact is that one cast of Flurry hits the target 3 times, and every time Flurry hits the target, it will refresh the Ventyr's Chill duration. Your first Flurry hit will put on Ventyr's Chill effect, second Flurry hit will consume 1 stack of the effect and then refresh the effect. Lastly, third Flurry hit consumes 1 Ventyr's Chill effect and then resets the effect. Usually after the Flurry, you want to use double Ice Lance for the maximum damage. These 4 abilities are the most important when it comes to solo target damage as a Frost Mage. I would advise that for starters, you practice just spamming Frostbolt and reacting to procs on dummies. You will see that sometimes you gain both Brain Freeze and Fingers of Proc at the same time. What are you gonna do next? Well, Frost Mages are pretty much going according to their priorities. Your number 1 priority is casting Brain Freeze Flurry. Second priority is removing Fingers of Frost stacks, and your last priority is casting Frostbolt. You only have 3 possible outcomes when you're just spam casting Frostbolt. First outcome happens like this. You cast Frostbolt and your Brain Freeze procs from that cast. At that point, you're already casting another Frostbolt. And at the end of that Frostbolt cast, you want to use your Flurry. This way, your Frostbolt will benefit from Flurry's Ventyr's Chill, since Flurry has a faster travel time than Frostbolt. After that, you cast 2 Ice Lances, so they consume the Ventyr's Chill. Again, I've seen players miss this a lot of time. Be sure to cast 2 Ice Lances, not 1, not 3, but 2. Second outcome is that you cast Frostbolt and you gain Fingers of Frost. You will already be in a new Frostbolt cast before you notice the Fingers of Frost, and at the end of that Frostbolt cast, just use an Ice Lance. The rarest thing which will happen is that you gain another Fingers of Frost stack after the second Frostbolt, and then you just use your second Ice Lance to consume that stack as well. Third outcome is the most difficult one to understand. You cast your Frostbolt and you get both Brain Freeze and Fingers of Frost stack. You're casting a new Frostbolt, and at the end of that cast, you still want to do Flurry into double Ice Lance. This will effectively make your Fingers of Frost proc useless, but it's important that you cast an instant Flurry, since there is 30% chance that you will get a new Brain Freeze proc. And trust me, Brain Freeze proc does a lot more damage than a single Fingers of Frost proc. After you get comfortable with these 3 outcomes, you want to start using all your abilities and cooldowns. Now copy my talents, I'm running Splitting Ice here for sake of practicing. These are currently the second best talents for solo target situations, and you don't need to think too much about them. You will want to go for Comet Storm talent at some point, but that's for the players who are already ready for it. Frost Mages have 4 cooldowns plus 1 Covenant related cooldown. For start of this patch, I recommend going to Venthyr Covenant. First and most important cooldown is Icy Veins. Icy Veins increases your haste by a lot, and most importantly, it summons a Rune of Power under you. That's pretty much it for this cooldown, nothing too exciting. Second cooldown that I want to talk about is Rune of Power. It increases your spell power by 40% when you're standing in it. Just be careful about the Rune of Power range. It looks small on the ground, but it's quite big. Important thing to know is if you have 2 Runes of Power at the same time, you can only benefit from one. So stacking them is a no-no. You want to have them separately to increase the Rune of Power uptime. Third cooldown is Frozen Orb. Frozen Orb is a bit weird to aim. It will go from the direction of your character. It is important that your Frozen Orb hits the target, otherwise it's just going to disappear. The first time your Frozen Orb hits, it will give you Fingers of Frost buff. Every time your Frozen Orb deals damage, it has a chance to generate additional Fingers of Frost. That's why you need to be extra careful when your Frozen Orb is up. Fourth cooldown is the Covenant cooldown. Before we get our hands on double legendary power, you want to be Venthyr. Mirrors of Torment are a fun cooldown. After you cast it, each time the enemy affected by it makes an auto attack or casts a spell, it will proc 1 mirror. Each mirror deals some damage, but more importantly for us, it will give you a brain freeze proc. Mirrors of Torment can proc 3 times, and there is internal cooldown of 6 seconds in between the procs. You can track the last time your mirror procced by using a weak aura. Good thing about Frost Mage cooldowns is that you don't have to think too much about them. You just need to use them as they come. There is no waiting to combine Icy Veins with Frozen Orb or something like that. Just use them as they come. Your opener should look something like this. You cast Mirrors of Torment, after that you pop a Potion of Intellect together with Icy Veins and Frozen Orb. You cast spells according to already mentioned priority list. After your first Rune of Power, which you summon with Icy Veins, expires, you summon a new Rune of Power. And that's pretty much it for the Frost Mage basics. You just need to learn the priority list and you will be good to go. It's important that you get the rotation into your muscle memory, so you can use it even in stressful situations. Now when I'm done with Frost Mage basics, let's just take a short look at Frost Mage changes. Frost is the only mage spec which saw changes. Blizzard and Frozen Orb damage were nerfed quite a lot. Frozen Orb damage was reduced by 12%, Blizzard damage has also been reduced by 12%. But now it reduces the cooldown of Frozen Orb by 0.25 seconds each time Blizzard deals damage, and it was 0.5 seconds in the last patch. Last change is that Comet Storm no longer removes Winter's Chill. Big Blizzard and Frozen Orb nerfs are doing a huge damage to Frost Mage dominance in Mythic Plus, and their overall AoE damage will suffer a lot. The worst part of these changes is the damage to Frost Mage Cleave. Now it's no longer worth to cast Blizzard on 2 targets, because the Frozen Orb cooldown reduction will be super small. Now we will start Blizzarding on 3 targets. Frozen Orb cooldown will be a lot longer, especially in Mythic Plus. This overall means that Freezing Winds Legendary will suffer a lot as well, since we won't be generating as much Frozen Orbs as we used to. Now for the Frost Mage talents. You want to run the same talents as I do for solo targets. The only exception comes in 2nd and 6th row. 2nd row is optional and you can go with either Shimmer or Ice Flows. I prefer Shimmer a lot more than Ice Flows, but both are good. 6th row is the only talent row that changes depending on the fight. Since the quality of life change which happened in 9.2, Comet Storm benefits from Winter's Chill but no longer consumes it. That's why you want to run Comet Storm instead of Splitting Ice on solo target fights. On 2 to 4 targets you want to run Splitting Ice, on 5 target AoE you'd want to run Freezing Rain. Conduits are similar to talents. They're quite static for a lot of cases. You just want to run Icy Propulsion, and that's bread and butter of Frost Mages. Ice Bite is a very good conduit and you want to run this in solo target and 2 target cleave situations. For AoE and 3 target cleave, Ice Bite power is going to fall off, and then you're gonna start using Unrelenting Cold Conduit. Lastly, we have the Covenant Conduits. You want to run Covenant Conduits from Venthyr for 1 and 2 targets. While for Necrolords, you're always running Gift of the Lich. So when you're Venthyr on 3 targets, you're gonna run Icy Propulsion, Ice Bite, and lastly Unrelenting Cold Conduit. And for the last note, Ice Bite is going to be taken over by Shivering Core Conduit at 5 target AoE. And when you're Necrolord, you're always running Icy Propulsion and Gift of the Lich. And you're pretty much just rotating the 3rd conduit. Covenants and Soulbinds. We're going to have 2 best Covenants for solo targets, and that's going to be Venthyr and Necrolords. Necrolords will be better if you don't have downtime on the fight, and Venthyr will be better with a lot of downtime. When you get double legendary, the difference between Necrolords and Venthyr is going to be fairly large, so you'll pretty much always run Necrolords at that point. For Cleave situations and even AoE up to 5 targets, Necrolords look to be the best. Best Necrolord Soulbind for solo targets is Plague Divisor, while for Cleave and AoE, a Mani should be the best, with Bonesmith not too far behind. Venthyr wise, you will only play them on solo targets, and in those situations, Teotar is the best. But if you often swap your Covenants, especially in the raid, you may want to run Nadja, just because Teotar T has 1 hour cooldown and that might cause a lot of issues. Lastly, honorable mention is Night Fae, where Dreamweaver is going to be the best for them on heavy AoE situations. Legendary powers are the weirdest topic compared to the last patch. For solo targets, you still want to run Slick Eyes, but when it comes to 2-target Cleave, we can say bye-bye to our good old Freezing Winds. That should be the case when we get our hands on tier set at least. Then will be Necrolords for Cleave. So before 2 set piece, you want to go Venthyr Frost Mage on 2-target Cleave with Freezing Winds. Slick Eyes is going to be a better option even on 2-target Cleave, since it won't be worth to cast Blizzard there. While on 3-target Cleave and AoE, we got a new boy in town, and that's going to be Cold Front. Cold Front will insanely scale with Necrolord Frost Mages when we get our hands on double legendary power. Before getting double legendary power, Glacial Fragments should be the best for Necrolords on 4 targets or more with Splitting Eyes talent. While if you're running Venthyr or Night Fae, Glacial Fragments should be the best legendary power for 3 targets Cleave and AoE. Just bear in mind, Glacial Fragments are disliked by the mage community, and they only work if you have constant AoE, so you just need to have constant AoE. Since there aren't a lot of areas where you just have constant AoE, in those situations we may see Freezing Winds. We will have to craft 3 legendary powers to be optimal for the raid in this patch, so Freezing Winds and start, Slick Eyes and Cold Front. For legendary item slots, I recommend having Slick Eyes and Glacial Fragments on leg slot, Cold Front on your chest slot, and lastly Freezing Winds on your helm slot, since both gloves and helm slots are from the set. If you have the gold and time to farm the Soul Ash for the legendary, you may craft Glacial Fragments and Cold Front firstly on your back slot and Slick Eyes on belt slot before the double legendary. That way you're safe from getting the set bonus in a bad place. Ideally, you want to get Slick Eyes and Glacial Fragments on leg slot and Cold Front on chest slot, because that's how you will get the most stats. As for Mythic Plus, the situation will be all over the place. Mythic Plus features all types of fight from solo target to Giga AoE. That's why situation in Mythic Plus will be especially volatile. You may see Slick Eyes in certain dungeons. I think that there won't be a lot of Cold Front legendary before double legendary power. Some may even use Glacial Fragments for constant small AoE, and we will probably see Freezing Winds as well, since that's our best legendary for AoE plus solo target plus priority damage situations. The whole situation is going to be hella interesting. You may even see a lot of Necrolords in Mythic Plus walking around at some point in time. Groups can definitely play with Deathborn cooldown with Gigapacks. Players who play this game are extremely creative, and I cannot predict what's going to end up on top. Stats haven't changed since the last patch. Your priority is going to be critical strike chance to reach your shatter cap. Shatter happens at 33.34% critical strike chance. Second priority is haste, then versatility, and lastly mastery. When you reach the shatter cap, priority of critical drops below mastery, so pay attention to your critical strike rating. For players who don't know, Shatter Cap means that you will always land a critical strike on targets which are deemed to be frozen, so your Fingers of Frost ice lances and abilities used on Winter's Chill. In AoE situation, Shatter Cap isn't that big of a thing, since your main damage won't be coming from shattering ice lances. That's why the priority of critical strike in AoE still remains quite high. Overall, if you have some uncertainty with your stats, just trust Raidbot's page and Top Gear. I don't recommend using stat weights, just use Top Gear to determine what are the optimal stats for you. Also bear in mind, Intellect has a great value for Frost Mages, so usually bigger item level means better item. Rotation and opener. The nerfs to Blizzard and Frozen Orb made the Frost Mage rotation simpler, since you don't have to run Freezing Winds, which was causing some problems to the average Frost Mage player. I will cover Frost Mage solo target opener and rotation for Venthyr and Necrolord mages. Then I'm gonna follow that up with 2 and 3 target Cleave for Necrolords, and later AoE for Necrolords. I won't be talking a lot about Night Fae since they're only viable in Mythic Plus situations, but I will definitely give my take on Mythic Plus situation at the end of the video. We're starting off with our good old vampire friends and the new Skelly boys on solo target situations. The rotation has slightly changed for Venthyr compared to the last patch, due to Comment Storm talent having the upper hand, and we also gained Comment Storm from 2 set piece. Venthyr will always run Slick Eyes on solo targets, and the main goal here is to pair Flurry together with Comment Storm. Your priority list will change slightly. You have another spell to pay attention to. The whole Frost Mage rotation progress for Venthyr and Necrolord will be done with 2 set piece bonus. So there won't be any difference in the rotation if you get 4 piece and even double legendary. There are 2 ways to do the pull for Venthyr, but the success of it just depends on boss RNG. You can start the pull with Mirrors of Torment, followed by Icy Veins, plus Potion of Spectral Intellect, plus Racial, plus Frozen Orb. Then according to your set proc and to Mirrors of Torment proc, which is kind of weird since not all bosses will attack instantly when you start the fight. But if you get Brain Freeze and your Comment Storm is raining down from heaven, I would use Flurry. If not, I would use Frostbolt into Ice Lance into Flurry. After that Flurry, you want to use your talented Comment Storm, even if the set Comment Storm is already falling. After the Comment Storm, you want to do Ice Lance, Frostbolt, Ice Lance. This opener is a bit weirder than your regular one. Whenever you cast Comment Storm, you're pairing it with Flurry, Comment Storm, Ice Lance, Frostbolt, Ice Lance. The reason behind this is the fact that Comment Storm takes some time to fall. That's why you start casting Frostbolt to follow it with Ice Lance, to give your Comment Storm time to benefit from the full Winter's Chill. You might be thinking now, but I'm going to lose my Ice Lance there. Well, you aren't going to lose it, since Ice Lance will hit the target before your Frostbolt, and that way Ice Lance will also benefit from Winter's Chill. Also, everything depends on if you get Mirrors of Torment proc from the boss. After that, you pretty much are going according to your priority list. Every time you get a Comment Storm from the set, try to react fast and pray for the Brain Freeze to be up. While for your normal cast Comment Storm, you will always use it with Flurry. So again, Flurry into Comment Storm, into Ice Lance, into Frostbolt, followed by the last Ice Lance. Second way to pull is to pre-pull with Frostbolt and then use Mirrors of Torment into Icy Veins plus Potion plus Racial plus Frozen Orb, followed by Frostbolt, Ice Lance, Flurry, Comment Storm, Ice Lance, Frostbolt, Ice Lance. Necrolords are super similar to Venthyr when it comes to solo target DPS, and the opener goes something like this. You first use Flashcraft because of the Plague Divisor 120 mastery buff. You just need to tap it and cancel it mid-fight to retain the buff. After Flashcraft, you cast Frostbolt for a pre-pull into Deathborn, Icy Veins plus Potion of Spectral Intellect plus Racial plus Frozen Orb. Now your opener will depend if you got Brain Freeze from your first Frostbolt cast. If you did, then you will go with Frostbolt into Flurry, Comment Storm, Ice Lance, Frostbolt, Ice Lance. Necrolord's opener and even rotation is simpler than Venthyr, since Mirrors of Torment have some difficulty connected to them. Now I will do a demonstration with both Covenants. I adapted my opener for the target dummy, since Mirrors of Torment are proccing quite fast on it. Here I got my Brain Freeze proc from my Frostbolt during my Mirrors of Torment, and that's why I just casted instant cast Flurry, since I knew that my mirror is soon gonna proc. In this instance, I got my Brain Freeze proc, so I decided that I'm gonna cast one more Frostbolt into Flurry. And from that one I also got Brain Freeze, which I followed with the Comet Storm. That's why I just used 2 Ice Lances, but you can notice that I had a slight delay between casting my second Ice Lance. I just wanted that the whole Comet Storm hits during my Winter's Chill. On 2 targets Cleave, you want to be Necrolords and you will run Splitting Ice talent. So completely same talents as in the last patch, but you're just running Slick Ice legendary for this. Necrolord's 2 target Cleave is different when you get your hands on the double legendary. First I will do opener with only set bonus, then with double legendary. This rotation and opener is remarkably simple, and it will get simpler with double legendary. Small mention is that you use Flashcraft for pre-pull even with a Mani. It gives you Absorb Shield, plus it will offer you some damage when you're healed. For the pre-pull with only the set bonus, you want to cast Frostbolt, then Deathborn. Into Potion, plus Racial, plus Icy Veins, plus Frozen Orb. Frostbolt, Ice Lance, Frostbolt. After that point, you're just reacting to your procs and it's super easy. You don't even use Blizzard and you pop your Winter's Chill with Ice Lance. When it comes to 2 target Cleave with double legendary, it gets extremely easy. So here is the opener. Precast Frostbolt, follow it with Deathborn, Potion, plus Racial, plus Icy Veins, plus Frozen Orb into Frostbolt spam. The only thing that you need to use from the procs is Flurry and that's it. Just remember, you're shattering your Flurry with Frostbolt. You don't cast a single Ice Lance until you're out of your Deathborn form. I only make one exception to this rule, and that's if I'm super unlucky with Flurry procs and criticals. So I will be missing several seconds for my new Icy Veins. At that time I'm gonna use my 2 Ice Lances from Fingers of Frost. After you're out of Deathborn, you just continue doing the normal 2 target rotation. Some of you guys who are more into Frost Mages will ask yourself, when is it worth to stop casting Frostbolt during your Deathborn? And basically stopping to ramp. Well, from my current knowledge, it's not worth to stop ramping even if that is your last cast of Deathborn. Now the demonstration is in order. As soon as you're out of your Deathborn form, you start using your Ice Lance once again. And this is where I made an oopsie. I casted Flurry and I saw that I procced my Comet Storm, so I immediately started casting Frostbolt into Ice Lance, but I kinda forgot to use my first Ice Lance. On 3 target Cleave, you definitely want to be Necrolord. And again, the rotation and opener will be simple and even simpler when you get double legendary power. Splitting Ice talent is still online together with Cold Front legendary power. One thing to bear in mind is that for 3 targets Cleave without double legendary power, you want to keep 100% uptime of your Blizzard. Opener should be something like this. Blizzard as a pre-pull into Deathborn, into Icy Veins plus Pot plus Racial plus Frozen Orb, Frostbolt, Ice Lance, Blizzard. Then you just go ahead according to procs and keep 100% uptime on Blizzard. The opener and rotation changes when you get your hands on the double legendary. You don't want to cast a single Blizzard while you're in Deathborn form. For me, it ended up as a DPS loss. I did break my mind around this fact a lot, and now I'm quite certain that this is the right way on 3 target Cleave. Opener will look something like this. Blizzard as a pre-pull into Deathborn, into Icy Veins plus Pot plus Racial plus Frozen Orb, and then you literally just follow your procs. Here is my demonstration for 3 target Cleave. Just notice how my damage is insanely ramping through this whole time. And again, as soon as you're done with Deathborn, you start the normal usage of Ice Lance. But you gotta say that it's a pretty impressive damage after 1 minute and 30 seconds into the fight without using potion or without using time warp. Plus I only have 256 item level. Necrolords are again a go-to for pure 4 and 5 target AoE. While you only have the set pieces you want to run, you guys won't be happy with this, but Glacial Fragments are the best on pure 4 and 5 target AoE. There isn't a lot of situations like these, but I still want to cover everything. So basically this is just for pure 4 and 5 target AoE. You're of course running Splitting Ice just for the Glacial Fragments, and the rotation is laughably easy. Just keep 100% uptime on Blizzard and spam those Ice Lances together with Frozen Orbs. But the whole situation with Necrolord's AoE becomes a lot more fun when you get your hands on double legendary power. Then you want to run Cold Front on both 4 and 5 target AoE. Unlike with the 3 target Cleave, you want to keep 100% uptime of Blizzard during Deathborn and outside of Deathborn. For talents, on 4 targets you want to run either Freezing Rain or Splitting Ice. The difference is quite minor. And for 5 targets you want to run Freezing Rain. You're starting the pull again with Blizzard, into Deathborn, into Icy Veins plus Pot plus Racial plus Frozen Orb, into Frostbolt spamming together with keeping Blizzard uptime. Whenever you get Flurry, just cast it and continue spamming those Frostbolts for the Giga ramp. A small demonstration is in order. I'm gonna have like a few seconds of Glacial Fragments and that's pretty much it. I mean, what to say about this rotation, I really don't know. If you look at my 3 target damage after the Deathborn, you can see that I did much more there on 3 targets than here on 4 targets, but that was just pretty much due to Deathborn RNG. I got like plus 20 more seconds on Deathborn, which just caused me to ramp insanely. Since we're done with all the important talk, let's talk about the unpredictable Mythic Plus situation. This one is always hard and the meta usually changes during the season. Currently all the options are open, at least until we get our hands on double legendary powers. In my humble opinion, we will now see a lot of different builds for Mythic Plus, from using Freezing Winds to using notorious Glacial Fragments. You may as well use Slick Ice and Cold Front depending on the dungeon. Everything will also change from week to week. Like everything is going to be different from Fortified to Tyrannical week. And the situation also changes depending on how well your group is coordinated. So it's definitely not possible to talk about Mythic Plus. You always have to pay into the account that majority of player base is doing like plus 18 keys or something at the end of the last patch. There's a huge difference between small and big keys. Too many factors to discuss it as a general thing. I also have one more opinion, and that's that I think that Necrolords will be the best even in Mythic Plus when we get our hands on double legendary power. At that point we're going to go for Cold Front in Mythic Plus with Necrolords. We're even gonna run Slick Eyes sometimes. If Frost Mages are good, there will be groups made around their Deathborn cooldown. And 3-minute cooldowns fare well with some tank classes. So everything will be in order for Gigapulse. That's just my small take on Mythic Plus situation. It's going to be extra volatile for several weeks until we find the best meta, and even that meta may shift during this long patch. Expect to see a video from me if any interesting developments happen in Mythic Plus. That has been all for this Ultimate Frost Mage guide for patch 9.2. If you find this video useful, please leave a like and share it with your friends. It will help me a lot. If you guys have any questions, the comment section is the right place to be. Also, if you need personal coaching, I offer that on my Patreon. If you just want to support me, I have a goal there, and when passed, content creating becomes living for me, and that's currently my biggest goal. Huge thanks to my current patrons listed on the screen. I hope that the video was good, and until next time, take care.